Disrespect rarely starts with something you can point at. It begins as a look, a tone, relax, I'm just joking. Most people swallow it. They tell themselves, it's not worth reacting. And in that moment, they quietly step into the weaker position. Machiavelli understood a rule most people never learn. Respect is not passively earned. Respect is enforced. When someone disrespects you, they're not just being rude, they're testing you. They're asking, can I cross this line and keep my access to you? Every time you laugh it off or say nothing, your silence answers, yes. The people who get walked on are often not weak at all. Many are generous, patient, and intelligent, but they're unguarded. They confuse kindness with accepting bad behavior and think turning the other cheek makes them noble, that if they stay calm and decent, others will eventually feel guilty and change. But in a world built on status, attention, and leverage, that's not how most people operate. They don't hunt the loudest person. They hunt the safest person, the one who hates conflict, who wants to be liked, who would rather be uncomfortable than make it awkward. We're going to talk about a darker way to handle disrespect, not by yelling, not by sulking, not by trading insults, but by stepping into cold, controlled power, by becoming someone who doesn't have to say, "Don't talk to me like that," because everybody already knows what happens if they do. I'll walk you through 5 psychological tactics, grounded in Machiavellian thinking, that change how people treat you. You'll see why silence can be more powerful than defending yourself, why consistency builds fear, and why the most dangerous person in any room is the one who doesn't need approval from anyone. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's about becoming non-negotiable. Lock in one sentence, and if this were the actual video, I'd tell you to drop it in the comments. Disrespect sharpens my awareness. Not my anger, not my self-doubt, my awareness. From this point on, every act of disrespect, no matter how small, is a data point. It tells you who someone really is when they think there are no consequences. Now let's destroy the biggest myth about disrespect, that it's obvious. In movies, disrespect is loud shouting, insults, open hostility. In real life, the most dangerous disrespect is subtle. It shows up as, "I'm just teasing," as, "You're too sensitive," as, "Don't take it so seriously." It's the coworker who constantly talks over you, the friend who always turns you into the punchline, the family member who waves away your opinions. First, they test you with something small, a jab at your looks, your choices, your competence. Then they watch. They're not just joking. They're watching your face, your body language, the energy in the room. If you smile, laugh, or stay quiet, they learn something important. You will not defend yourself. So the next time, they push further. The jokes get sharper. The interruptions become routine. The dismissive body language returns again and again. Maybe they stop including you in certain conversations or decisions. None of these moments feels big enough to call out on its own. But together, they form a pattern of systematic disrespect. If you keep tolerating it, you start training them. You silently teach them that you're available for poor treatment. You become the safe target, the one they can vent at, mock, or overlook without risking anything. Machiavelli, who watched men lose everything because they looked weak at the wrong time, came to a harsher conclusion. Silence at the wrong moment is not maturity, it's consent. When you say nothing after someone crosses a line, when you laugh along with a joke that humiliates you, when you let just this once slide, you're quietly signing a contract that says, you can do that again. The people who are respected and the people who are stepped on are not living in 2 different worlds. They're playing by 2 different rules. One group understands that every interaction is a negotiation. Every word, tone, and joke is a tiny vote on where you stand in the hierarchy. They treat those moments seriously and enforce their standards early. The other group pretends those moments don't matter, absorbs the sting, and walks back into the same dynamic, unchanged. Most people are playing checkers, reacting move by move. A few are playing chess, seeing the pattern, protecting their position, and making sure disrespect never gets comfortable near them. And the first move on the board is simple, but extremely uncomfortable. Strategic silence. Silence is one of the oldest weapons of power, but like all weapons, it cuts both ways. There's weak silence, and then there's strategic silence. Most people don't know the difference, and that's why they lose. Weak silence happens when you freeze because you're unsure, afraid, or hurt. You don't speak up because you don't want to make things worse. You're trying to keep the peace, but what you're really doing is handing the other person control. They can feel that uncertainty in you, and when they do, they'll push harder next time. Strategic silence, though, is deliberate. It's calm. It's weaponized patience. You don't respond because you're choosing not to. You're observing. You're deciding whether the person in front of you is even worth a response. Here's how it works. Someone makes a disrespectful comment, a joke, a dig, a sly remark meant to lower your value in the room. Instead of defending yourself or explaining, you stop talking. You look directly at them. You say nothing. Let the silence stretch. Let it breathe. Watch how fast the tone of the room changes. At first, they'll expect you to play along, to fire back or laugh. But as the seconds tick by, their brain starts working against them. They begin to feel the weight of their words hanging in the air. They start to wonder, did I go too far? That discomfort grows. The silence becomes unbearable for them, not for you. Machiavelli said, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." Strategic silence creates that quiet fear not of violence, but of unpredictability. They can't read you anymore. They don't know if you're angry, calculating, or just indifferent. That mystery makes people cautious. Let me give you an example. You're at a table with a group of people. Someone takes a shot at you, something personal, something that makes everyone laugh. You don't smile. You don't defend yourself. You simply meet their eyes and let the silence expand until the laughter dies. You've just changed the hierarchy in that room. They were expecting you to react the same way you always do. Instead, you gave them nothing. And that nothing is everything. Because in that moment, you force them to see themselves. You've turned their disrespect into a mirror, and for the first time, they don't like what they see reflected. You're not angry. You're not emotional. You're in control. And control, not noise, not bravado, is what commands respect. Silence isn't absence. Silence is presence. It's focus. It's the pause before the storm. When everyone else is scrambling to fill the air, the person who stays calm enough to say nothing owns the room. But your silence has to come from strength. If you're quiet because you don't know what to say, people sense it. That's submission. But if you're quiet because you're choosing to conserve your energy, that's power. You're signaling that your attention is valuable and not easily provoked. So when you practice this, start small. When someone says something thoughtless or dismissive, don't rush to smooth things over. Just pause. Let them feel the full weight of their own words. Over time, this becomes your natural reaction, calm, unreadable composure. Drop this thought in your mind. My silence speaks louder than my defense. Now, let's move to the second law of handling disrespect. Something even more important than silence. Relentless consistency. Here's where most people sabotage themselves. They'll enforce their boundaries once, maybe twice. Then they relax, thinking the lesson was learned. It never is. People don't respect what you say you'll do. They respect what you always do. If your boundaries are flexible, they're invisible. If you only enforce them when you feel strong, people will wait for your weak days. Human nature is simple. We test limits. Like water, people flow toward the path of least resistance. If your boundaries have cracks, they'll find them. If your standards are negotiable, they'll negotiate them into dust. That's why consistency is the ultimate form of dominance. It builds reputation, and reputation, Machiavelli wrote, is a form of armor. Each time you respond the same way to disrespect, calm, cold, firm, you're reinforcing that armor. Each time you make an exception, you're puncturing it. The people who command natural respect, think about them, they're steady. They don't sometimes explode and sometimes stay silent. They don't have good days for boundaries and bad days for self-respect. They're consistent, predictable in their standards, unpredictable in everything else. Now think about those who always get mistreated. They're inconsistent. They let one slight go, then get angry about the next one. They make exceptions for friends or family. They hope others will get it. But inconsistency doesn't earn understanding, it earns testing. Every time someone disrespects you and you respond differently, you're teaching them to keep experimenting. It becomes a game. Maybe this time they'll let it slide. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He said power is built by repetition. The more consistent your enforcement, the stronger your reputation becomes. When you're relentlessly consistent, people start to regulate themselves around you. They already know what will happen if they cross the line, so they simply stop trying. That's how real respect works, not through lectures, but through predictable consequences. Drop this affirmation into your mindset. My standards never bend. Start by picking one small area where you've been inconsistent. Maybe you tolerate lateness, interruptions, or condescending tones. From now on, treat that behavior exactly the same every time it appears. No exceptions. Watch how quickly people adapt when they realize your boundaries aren't up for negotiation. Consistency builds reputation. Reputation builds fear. And fear, managed wisely, builds respect. That's how you start turning power from something you chase into something you radiate. Now let's move deeper into the third law of handling disrespect. The power of a clear and effective response. When someone crosses you, your reaction should never be ordinary. Because ordinary reactions get forgotten. They blend into the noise of daily life. If someone insults you and you snap back, it's just another argument. If they dismiss you and you try to explain yourself, it's just another debate. These are emotional exchanges, not power moves. They might make you feel better in the moment, but they change nothing. A truly powerful response is disproportionate, not in anger, but in impact. The goal isn't to match their disrespect. It's to make the experience of disrespecting you so uncomfortable, so memorable, that they never want to do it again. Let's look at how that works. Say someone makes a cutting joke about you in front of others. The usual responses: laugh it off, make a joke back, argue, only feed the moment. Instead, look at them calmly and say, "That wasn't funny." Then, act as if they no longer exist in the room. No reaction, no follow-up. You've made the entire room feel that tension. They will think about it long after you've moved on. Or maybe you don't even say a word. You simply excuse yourself and walk away. You remove your presence, your energy, your attention, the very things that give others social value. That vacuum says more than any comeback ever could. Another example. A friend repeatedly shows up late. Instead of scolding them, stop waiting. Start making plans without them. When they ask why, calmly say, "I wasn't sure you'd make it." It's not angry, it's surgical. They'll remember that line every time they look at a clock. This is what I mean by disproportionate. The disrespect was small, but the consequence hits harder and lasts longer. It plants hesitation. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. He wasn't talking about cruelty. He was talking about consequence. When people know there's a price to pay, they think twice. And that's the point. You're not trying to be liked. You're making sure you're respected. Your responses should teach people that crossing you once costs more than it's worth. Someone interrupts you when you're speaking? Don't raise your voice. Just stop talking. Look at them, wait until they finish, then calmly resume as if their interruption didn't matter. You've just reminded everyone, without words, who sets the pace of that conversation. Someone mocks your goals? Stop sharing them. The next time they ask about your plans, say, "I've been focused on people who support progress." No drama, no emotion, just quiet separation. A family member constantly criticizes your choices? You don't argue. You limit your time with them. You attend fewer gatherings. They'll notice your distance, and that distance becomes the consequence. The punishment doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be felt. Because here's the truth. People don't remember your explanations. They remember their own discomfort. When someone thinks about disrespecting you again, you want them to recall the emptiness they felt when you withdrew, the silence that followed their joke, the cold edge in your calmness. That's power that lingers. Most people go to one of two extremes when they're disrespected. They either act like doormats or they explode. Both are predictable. Both can be dismissed. The doormat invites repetition. The explosion makes you look unstable. But when your response is cold, controlled, and slightly disproportionate, it sticks in their mind like a psychological scar. They'll never know what else you're capable of. And that uncertainty is exactly where your power lives. Now, think back to the last time someone disrespected you and got away with it. Ask yourself, what could you have done differently to make that moment unforgettable? How could you have responded in a way that would still echo in their mind weeks later? That's the mindset shift. You're not reacting anymore. You're teaching. Drop this in your internal code. My responses send a clear message. Once you start applying this consistently, something fascinating happens. People begin to self-correct around you. They hesitate before making that joke, before interrupting, before minimizing your voice. Because they've learned, disrespecting you doesn't end in laughter or conflict. It ends in consequences. And the next stage goes even deeper, because now you're not just enforcing respect. You're shaping how people see you before they even think about disrespecting you. This brings us to the fourth law, crafting the dark image. Your aura, your reputation, your presence, these are not accidents. They're messages. Before you speak, before you act, people are already forming judgments about how much they can test you. Whether they'll step carefully or casually depends on the energy you project. You want to project controlled danger, not aggression, not arrogance. Just quiet, steady certainty that crossing you would be a costly mistake. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." You don't need to look intimidating. You need to look like someone who's not to be played with. How do you build that? Through details. The way you walk into a room upright, calm, with measured movement. No rush, no nervous fidgeting. You move like someone who owns their time. The way you speak, slow, deliberate, unhurried. Your words carry weight because you treat them like they do. The way you handle disrespect when others are watching, cool, precise, never emotional. One moment of composure under pressure can define your entire reputation. People take notes subconsciously. They remember how you react. They categorize you as one of those people you don't mess with. That image becomes your shield long before you need to use it. We'll continue building that image next. So now we enter the next level, crafting the dark image, the invisible armor that makes people think twice before testing you. See, power isn't just about what you do. It's about what people expect you to do. Your image, the energy you project before you even open your mouth, sets the boundaries for how others treat you. If your presence says, "I'll tolerate anything," they'll push. But if your presence says, "This person doesn't play," they adjust before you ever have to correct them. The people who command natural respect don't announce it. They don't need to. Their aura speaks first. And it says, you might want to rethink your tone. How do you build that aura? You do it through controlled intensity, the art of suggesting consequence without ever having to express it. Start with how you carry yourself. Move like someone who doesn't rush. Slowness signals confidence. Nervous people hurry. Powerful people take their time. Stand straight, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. Walk into a room like you belong there, because you do. Next, your voice. Speak deliberately. Leave pauses. Don't race to fill silence. Each word should sound like a decision. When you speak calmly, people subconsciously lean in. They have to listen. Then, your reactions. Nothing kills respect faster than overreacting. When someone praises you, nod and move on. When someone criticizes you, stay composed. If you can treat praise and criticism with equal calm, people see you as someone who cannot be emotionally manipulated. Machiavelli said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." What you appear to be should be someone who is untouchable, someone who doesn't explain, someone who doesn't chase, someone whose attention, time, and forgiveness all come at a cost. Being selective builds this image faster than anything else. Be selective with your warmth, don't give it freely. Be selective with your time, don't always be available. Be selective with your attention. Look directly at people when they speak, but don't linger when they waste your energy. Be selective with second chances. Most people ruin the first one. Few deserve another. This kind of selectivity sends a clear message. You are valuable. And valuable people don't need to beg for respect. They inspire it. When someone disrespects you in public, your reaction becomes your legend. The powerful don't argue or try to win the room. They shut things down quietly. No theatrics, just cold precision. One measured response, one unshakable stare, one calm boundary enforced. And everyone watching learns what you tolerate and what you don't. People should feel a slight tension when they're about to say something careless around you. Not fear in the violent sense, but respect in the psychological sense. They should sense that your peace is guarded, and that disturbing it comes at a price. When your name comes up in a conversation, people should pause, nod, and say, "Yeah, they don't play around." That's the energy of controlled power. And this reputation doesn't build overnight, it's sculpted, brick by brick, through how you show up in small moments. Here's how to do it practically. Never chase anyone for attention or approval. If someone pulls away, let them. Distance is your dignity. Don't over-explain your decisions. When you say no, mean no. The more you explain, the more you invite negotiation. Stop tolerating small disrespect to keep the peace. Peace built on disrespect is just submission with a polite smile. Keep your emotional state steady. No highs or lows, just calm command. The most powerful people in the room are often the quietest. They don't need to prove who they are. Their presence alone sets the temperature. This kind of presence changes everything. Low-quality people, the drama chasers, the manipulators, will avoid you. You'll stop being an easy target because you no longer radiate availability. And high-quality people, the disciplined, the focused, the self-respecting, will start to move closer. Because like attracts like. When you raise your standards, you repel the weak and attract the strong. Drop this in your mindset. My presence commands respect. Now, let's go even further, into the fifth and highest law of this entire philosophy. Higher Machiavellian strategy. This is where you stop reacting to disrespect emotionally and start treating it as intelligence. Every time someone disrespects you, they're revealing something priceless. Information about who they are. They're telling you what they envy, what they fear, and what they believe about your power. Think of each act of disrespect as a data point. You're collecting evidence, not absorbing pain. Who disrespects you when you succeed? That's envy exposing itself. Who disrespects you only when you're alone? That's cowardice. Who disrespects you to your face, but flatters you in public? That's manipulation. Who disrespects you when you set boundaries? Those are the people who benefited from your lack of them. Who gets angry when you start demanding respect? Those are the ones who are thriving on your submission. Machiavelli warned, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But before you can do that, you must first identify which is which, and disrespect is the perfect test. Most people miss these signs because they take disrespect personally. They replay it, internalize it, blame themselves. But you, when you think like Machiavelli, you strip the emotion out. You treat disrespect like reconnaissance. Every sneer, every interruption, every harmless joke tells you who sees you as prey. This information is gold. It tells you who to trust, who to watch, and who to remove access from. For example, a coworker who interrupts you, but never the boss. Now you know their hierarchy game. They see you as safe to challenge, but fear real authority. A friend who makes jokes about your ambition, but never mocks more successful people. They're insecure. A relative who criticizes your choices but praises others for the same thing. They're biased. Stop seeking validation from them. See how freeing that is? Once you stop personalizing it, you stop bleeding energy. You stop thinking, how could they say that? And start thinking, thank you for revealing yourself early. Disrespect, to the Machiavellian mind, is not a wound, it's a warning label. It tells you exactly who deserves access to your trust, your time, and your energy. We'll finish this transformation in the final part, with the psychology behind disrespect and how to become completely untouchable. Here's the truth most people never realize. Disrespect is rarely about you. It's a mirror reflecting the insecurities and fears of the person showing it. Once you grasp that, you stop taking it personally and start using it strategically. People disrespect others for only a handful of reasons. Some do it out of insecurity. Tearing you down is their way of feeling important. Some do it for dominance. They want to test if you'll yield, to confirm their place above you. Others act out of fear. Your confidence threatens them, so they try to reduce it before it exposes their weakness. And some simply do it out of habit, because no one ever taught them there are consequences. But here's the irony. The ones who dish out disrespect are usually the least capable of enduring it themselves. They rely on your emotional reaction to maintain their illusion of power. So when you respond with calm precision, neither silence out of fear nor anger out of pride, they fall apart. You've stripped away their control. That's why Machiavellian strategy works. It's psychological judo. You let their aggression reveal itself while you stay unmoved. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't seek understanding. You observe. You take mental notes. Every act of disrespect becomes intelligence, and when you stop reacting, everything shifts. They become the emotional one, scrambling to justify their behavior while you stand still, quiet, unreadable, untouchable. The crowd, the colleagues, the family, all start to see the difference. The disrespect no longer stains you. It exposes them. Here's what happens when you master these principles. People stop seeing you as a target. They start adjusting their tone, their posture, their approach. They speak more carefully. They remember the silence, the distance, the calculated response that followed their last mistake. You've trained them without a single lecture. Because reputation is built exactly this way, one moment at a time, one consistent reaction after another. Every time you enforce your standards, you deposit into your account of power. Every time you let something slide, you make a withdrawal. Over time, that balance becomes your armor. Soon, your reputation precedes you. People hear your name and already know the rules. Disrespect becomes rare, not because the world got kinder, but because you made it expensive. And this has a compounding effect. Low-value people, those who thrive on chaos and weakness, will drift away from you. They'll sense that you're not the kind of person they can manipulate. But high-value people, the disciplined, the focused, the self-respecting, will move closer. You'll begin to attract what mirrors your new standard. Of course, you'll still be tested. Every strong person is. Old patterns, familiar faces, and subtle provocations will appear to check if your transformation was real. That's fine. Each test is another opportunity to reaffirm who you've become. Remember, the goal isn't to avoid disrespect. It's to be immune to it. To use it as a tool rather than a trigger. Every slight becomes information. Every insult becomes fuel. Every attempt to undermine you becomes proof that your presence commands attention. That's what Machiavelli would call the highest form of power, self-command. When disrespect no longer shakes your confidence, when you analyze instead of react, when you enforce standards without emotion, you become untouchable. You're not feared because you're cruel. You're feared because you're calm. You're not respected because you demand it. You're respected because you've engineered it. And from that moment on, you never have to raise your voice, prove your worth, or chase anyone's approval again. Because true power isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself.